The Asia-Pacific region contains more than half of the world's population and is a major contributor to the global economy with extensive trading and collaboration with the rest of the world. In recent years, a significant share of global economic output and growth has concentrated in large cities in the Asia-Pacific region. The region is highly dynamic with rapid growth and urbanization. The region currently accounts for 31% of global GDP, of the global trade in goods and services. Most long-term projections confirm that the region will regain the historical lion's share of the global economy, with the potential to exceed 50% by 2050, as it was some 200 years ago. This is no small achievement, recognizing that the region constituted only 16% of global GDP in 1950. The conclusion of World War II marked the independence of some of the most important countries of the region. 1945, 1947, and 1957 were years of independence for Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, India, and Pakistan. As the post-World War periods were a period of hope via achievements of independence for these countries in the region, they too represented years of frustration. Japan, one of the decisive powers of the region, came out from the Second World War vanquished. The harrowing nuclear attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki happened in August 1945, shattering the Japanese Great Asia Dream for good. The large geographical area of the Asia-Pacific was a victim of Britain, Netherlands, and the US in different degrees, and also the legacies of colonization. The colonial period was followed by another period of competition between the then great powers, the USSR and the US. The Cold War was a battle for ideological leadership in political and economic domains between two nuclear powers who grew to accept a status quo based on the principle of mutually assured destruction. In this confrontation, the Asia-Pacific region became the front line. This ideological divide of the superpowers presented the newly independent nations with tough choices about which political and economic system they would choose, and therefore which bloc they would join. This in turn was one of the reasons for the disintegration of the region, as different states became allies of opposite blocs. The role of the US in fragmenting the Asia-Pacific region was huge. The United States was a divisive power. With its almost 50% of global output, the US created new global institutions such as the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade to finance development and encourage trade, aid, and investment flows for those countries which adopted Western political and economic systems. The end of the Cold War closed the era of ideological rivalry between those who supported the Soviets and those of the US. This means that one of the pressing problems that put obstacles to the integration of the region was avoided. This marked the end of bipolarity in dominating the world and the emergence of multipolar centers of influence of our globe. The Asia-Pacific region came to be one of the vibrant players in the world politics and economics in the new order of the world. Governments in the region are doing their best to foster greater regional unity for peace and stability, strengthening institutions and governance, and in promoting regional connectivity and resource sharing towards augmenting productivity and enhancing regional welfare. Countries like China and India could be taken as an example in their great accomplishment as seen in their rigorous pursuits of broad-based economic reforms that have stimulated domestic demands and regional economic connectivity. The successful countries have also liberalized investments and the services sector, addressed structural rigidities, and strengthened their financial systems so that these enabled the region to be among the world's largest economies. If these achievements in individual countries are coupled with regional integration and connectivity, the region will assume a unique position to lead the world economy. Regional connectivity, defined as the level and effectiveness of regional networks to facilitate flows of goods, services, people, and knowledge, should include both physical and non-physical parameters to offer the most cost and time-effective multimodal systems. It is, however, impossible for the Asia-Pacific states to build a viable regional connectivity that would enable them to establish one economic community without defeating the negative legacies of colonialism. The post-independence period also presents another challenge for the region. The colonial divide and rule policy has left permanent scars in the relationships between different groups in the region. The Asia-Pacific region was historically a multi-ethnic and religious region where different groups lived amicably for centuries, if not for millennia. It was colonists that set a seed of hatred among different groups in the area. Favoring one group at the expense of the other was a typical colonial tactic that promoted resentment of a particular people towards another. British colonial leaders played a significant role in propagating the idea that Hindus and Muslims cannot live together in the same nation. This was one of the main reasons for the emergence of the two countries of India and Pakistan. Actually, the two people once shared the same geography and resources of the Indian subcontinent. Britain, for example, encouraged divisive parties like the Muslim League and the Hindu Mahasabha, and gave them a platform to spread division and hatred between Hindus and Muslims. For that matter, divide and rule was an official policy of the British Empire, and the Indian subcontinent is hardly the only place where Britain played this ploy. The second half of the 20th century witnessed the rise of radical groups in the Asia-Pacific region, once known for its ethno-religious coexistence. Among these is Hindutva, a movement that seeks a total imposition of Hinduism and the Hindu way of life on all peoples. Hindutva is a serious challenge to India, a country that blows its horn as democratic and multicultural. The movement also undermines India's constitution that seeks to temper religious passions and provide for religious liberty. Attacking minority Muslim communities in India has become a common phenomenon, especially since Modi, a fierce Hindu nationalist, took office in 2014. Sri Lanka has also been engulfed by a virulently anti-minority political Buddhism. The worst Buddhist fundamentalism is in the case of Myanmar. Alarming outbreaks of sectarian atrocities against Muslims in Myanmar cast an ominous cloud over that nation's democratic transition from military rule. Reading shocking reports of killings, arson, and mayhem instigated by monks casts a cloud on the future of the country. The massacre and displacement of Rohingya Muslims in western Myanmar in 2012 fomented recent violence targeting Muslims in towns of central Myanmar. Rakhine Buddhists in the west of the country have long resented the presence of Muslim Rohingya, dismissing them as illegal Bengali migrants from Bangladesh and delegitimizing claim of Muslims as part of Pasel and Myanmar's social fabric. However, the challenges faced by the Asia-Pacific countries are not just limited to just a handful of countries. It is a regional and global challenge that determines the fate of the region's future. It is known that the states in the region want to establish one economic community with greater regional unity for peace and stability. But this is not by any means achievable unless the consciously installed colonial legacies are defeated.